I'm Melissa Freeman. I'm a 25-year recovering meth addict.
My name is Weston Leach. I'm 35 years old, former drug addict, believer in Christ.
I am Chris Lawson. I am a sinner saved by grace.
I started using drugs when I was 13 years old. I started drinking alcohol and smoking pot. By the time I was 21, I was pretty much a drug addict. I drank, did drugs. My drug of choice is methamphetamines.
I started smoking cigarettes at 10 years old, and that just led one thing to another to another.
I turned 21 in the Posey County Jail, and a couple weeks after my 21st birthday, I went to prison for the first time.
I lived on the streets. I've never had a home. I've destroyed 3 different marriages. My life was a complete shambles.
Prison experience wasn't shocking. It wasn't anything that deterred me from wanting to change my life. You know, I didn't want to go back to prison, and I didn't, even at 21 years old, being in prison for drugs, I didn't really realize that I had a drug problem. I rationalized that a guy wore a wire on me and set me up, and I didn't take responsibility for any of my actions. I didn't want to come back, but I really didn't take it seriously. I didn't want to, when I got out, I said I wasn't going to use drugs, but I didn't do anything to prepare myself to go back into the lifestyle where I was going back to.
When I was 17 years old, a buddy of mine showed me how to manufacture meth, and when I was a junior in high school, and I started cooking dope. That's crazy.
I had no hope. 25 years of active, extensive meth use left me dark on the inside.
I remember saying to myself, meth is taking everything from me, and I still chose to do it. As it took my college career, it took the home that we were living in, it took my first child, my little baby boy, out of my home. It took him out of my life because I couldn't be around him because of my use. I wasn't allowed to go there when I was using and strung out on meth, so I wouldn't see him for weeks, months at a time, and I still chose to do it. The drug addiction was so strong that I still chose to do meth instead of trying to get my life back in order.
In September of 2011, I started using meth intravenously, and I'd never done that before. I always knew that if I went that far, there was no turning back, and I was right, but I did it anyway.
I did not know who I was. I was completely lost in drugs, and I had been for so many years. I did not even know who I was.
My daughter's birthday is December 6th, and I wanted to see her on her birthday, but I hadn't called, hadn't spoken to him or seen him in about 8 months. So on her birthday, I'm sitting there realizing that I'm missing my first child, or missing the birthday of one of my children for the first time. I'd been locked up before, but at least I got to call him and talk to him. This was the first time that one of my children were sitting without mom or dad on their birthday and not knowing where daddy is, not knowing why he wasn't there. And it was rough. I was really strung out. I sat with my cell phone in one hand and meth and a syringe in another hand. And I realized that I was choosing the meth and the syringe over a relationship with my children. I couldn't even call her. What would I say on her birthday of why I hadn't seen her in 9 months and why I couldn't come see her at that time? So I put it all in my pocket, meth and syringe in my left pocket, cell phone in my right pocket, and I went to the bathroom and I tried to cry, but I couldn't cry because I was too high. And I prayed. I prayed to God to help me. I said, God, help me. I can't do it on my own. I can't do it at all. I'm going to die, or I'm going to be in prison for a really long time. And my children aren't going to have a father if you don't do something, because I can't do it.
The U.S. Marshals and the Texas Rangers, the Texas State Police, Johnson County Sheriffs, I think there was a couple SWAT guys there. They kicked in our privacy fence in the house in Texas and took me into custody. I'd been hit with an A felony dealing methamphetamine and an A felony conspiracy to distribute methamphetamine from January 2011. And this was, or January 2012, and this was June 2012.
And in the next 3 days, I lost the vehicle that I was driving. It was impounded. I lost the drugs that I had, the money that I had, and I was arrested as a passenger in a vehicle and charged with possession of meth and put in jail. And since I was on bond, they wouldn't give me a new bond, so I was forced to stay incarcerated. And I was in jail for about 75 or 80 days, and I realized that God answered that prayer that I prayed the few nights before. And of course I didn't want to be in jail, but I really didn't want to be using meth, and I didn't want to continue in my addiction and die or never see my children again.
February the 12th of 2016, I got arrested for a large amount of methamphetamines and a loaded handgun. I thought that was the worst day of my life. I thought that my life was completely over. I was sitting in jail. I sat there for a few days before I got out.
I knew I was exactly where I needed to be, and I knew that God had put me there. And I started going to church on Monday nights and Celebrate Recovery or Overcomers in Christ on Tuesday nights. And there was a little pamphlet that said Churches Embracing Offenders on it. And one of the volunteers, a pastor, came in and he told us a little bit about it. So I took the Church Embracing Offenders pamphlet back to the cell and I read through it, and it sounded like something that would help me. You know, I knew that every time I got out of jail that I went right back to addiction. I went right back to the same environment, and I always went back to using, and I wanted help.
I went to Branchville and got put in a therapeutic community, and I met Mr. Tony Metcalf at a Wednesday night Celebrate Recovery meeting, and told him my case had been transferred, you know, and I was going to be getting out and living in Evansville, and I was kind of nervous. I knew there's a lot of bad stuff goes on in Evansville, you know. I was scared, you know, to get out because I had all the right intentions, but you know, you never know what can happen. You know, you get out on the streets and everything. I'd heard all these stories about everybody getting out with the best intentions and it just not working out.
So in February I was released on bond, and I went to Church Embracing Offenders and got enrolled, and they put me in a church on the west side, Forest Hills Wesleyan, and there was a group of people there that were ready and willing to help me. Pastor Wayne Ward I met, and I instantly formed a strong relationship with him. I found out that he's a former addict, that he could really relate to me, and that he was there to support me. There was people I could call right away. People from that church that were in the Church Embracing Offenders Committee actually came and picked me up and brought me to church. I had to go back to jail. I stayed involved in Forest Hills Wesleyan in Church Embracing Offenders, Celebrate Recovery, in the program while I was out on bond, but I still had the charge that I had to go to prison for. So Church Embracing Offenders was there to support me while I was out on bond the whole time. And when I was sentenced, I went to Branchville Correctional Facility.
So I kept going to these Wednesday night meetings, and it's funny, people in prison actually get to look forward to stuff. A lot of people on the streets take for granted the freedoms they have, you know, but that 1 hour a night I got to leave the dorm and go talk about something else and get away from everybody, you know, all the criminal activity, and actually plan a future, you know, for myself was, it was awesome.
So when I went to prison, they were still there for me. Tony Metcalf would come up every Wednesday night to the Celebrate Recovery meeting that Church Embracing Offenders has at Branchville. that was the highlight of my week. Every Wednesday night, there's a group. Sometimes there would be 15, sometimes 25 guys, and everyone would be really open, and everyone had a strong desire to better themselves and be in a better place when they left Branchville than where they were when they got there. And those men in that group wanted a better relationship with God and a stronger grasp of recovery. And that's what we got. Every Wednesday night from 6:30 to 8:30, we worked together. We opened up to each other and we learned from each other. And that's exactly what we got, a stronger foundation in our recovery and a stronger relationship with God and a stronger fellowship amongst us.
I got out of jail, I started taking drug tests for ABK, and I was completely lost. I had no idea where I was going in life. My life was a disaster. I guess that was the bottom of my barrel that I had to crawl out of. And in that time I was really depressed. Whenever you stop using drugs real abruptly like that, you go into a deep depression. I was real depressed, I was lost, I didn't have any friends. I had to get rid of everything that I knew in life. It's like being born again almost.
I was getting ready to get out in December of 2014, and I had an apartment already set up for me down here. I had a car. I didn't have no job yet, didn't know where I was going to work, what I was going to do. And Mr. Metcalf met me in the courtroom whenever I was still handcuffed and chained, and took me behind the judge's bench and was like, "Hey, you're set up, come by my office, tomorrow." And so I came. I came back to Evansville, to the Vanderbilt County Jail, and I didn't know if I was going to go to drug court or work release. I ended up going to work release, and as soon as I got to work release, I got a hold of Church Embracing Offenders, and I was immediately helped.
What I thought was the worst day of my life, February the 12th, 2016, actually ended up being the birth of me.
I got out, and I came here to Churches Embracing Offenders, and he was just like, "Whatever you need here, let me get you set up with this church, here's some job ideas." And so I kind of hit the ground running, man. I haven't looked back once. I don't ever forget where I've been or what I've done to this day, but I don't look back at all.
I live around the church that I attend now. I come every single Sunday. I have a very good relationship with the members of my church. I love the fellowship here. Alex has been the mentor as far as my Churches Embracing Offenders program goes. She's the one that sits with me every Sunday. She takes an hour every morning before church starts, and she comes in and she goes over these books that we have and teaches. That has made me a better person, that's opened me up spiritually, that has made me a happy person, able to forgive myself for the things I've done, able to move on to the next step in life. It's made me be able to do the next right thing at all times. I'm always doing the next right thing now.
I'm going to church. I'm going to church and going to meetings through Church Embracing Offenders. They're there to support me. I know that just like when I was out on bond, they're going to be there to support me through my time at work release. And when I'm released from there, I know that I have relationships and I have connections with people that want to help me. I've got a job at Papa John's. I'm working. I'm taking classes and going to church through Church Embracing Offenders, and I'm just ready to go on with my life. And I'm glad that I got the support and help that I have through Church Embracing Offenders.
It's for Churches Embracing Offenders programs, and programs like these that make it possible for people such as myself to come out and be a better part of the community and to really contribute. I got a good job. I'm in a union. I make really good money. I got good friends. I got a girlfriend that goes to college. She's going to be in the medical field.
I go to school. I have a job. I come to church. I have great fellowship. I'm blessed. I'm happy. I'm happy for the first time in life. I lay down. I pray every night before I go to bed. I can hear God now. I have this active relationship with Jesus, And I would not change my life and go back to my old life for anything in the world. Nothing can make me go back to that.
It's amazing what the lives that this program has touched, and I've seen it firsthand.
It's nice to know that I have support, and Churches Embracing Offenders is there for that support. So I just want to thank everyone who helps with Church Embracing Offenders.
You know, never in my life have I ever thought that I could live without, you know, a substance or a cigarette or, you know, something just to, I always thought I had to have something like a crutch. And I couldn't ever imagine even smoking or drinking or nothing now. You know, it just seems so far-fetched, the person I am today. And I'm very grateful for that.
Thank you for your help.